Hi everyone and welcome to Chess Tips. For today's tip of the day, we're going to talk about how when your opponent has no counterplay, patience is the attacker's greatest asset. So today's tip comes from John Nunn's Secrets of Grandmaster Chess, and it really shows the difference of what is a slow, methodical, developing attack as opposed to a quick knockout attack. Quick knockout attack, you typically could foresee the consequences of your sacrifices. You could foresee what's going to happen, and as a result, you end the game in a combination. Rather, a methodical attack is where you have an advantage. You prevent your opponent from all counterplay, and then you decisively win the game at the end. So in this game, the player of the white pieces is Peter Svidler versus Sakaev. And we see that Svidler has a decisive advantage for several reasons. The most common reason for everybody is that white obviously has a better minor piece than black, because the bishop on d4 in an opposite color bishop middle game has a more dynamic prospect, which is attacking the pawn on g7. And we see that the alternate bishop, the bishop on c6, does not have that much of luxurious life on c6. Having said that, the other reason why white has an advantage, apart from the fact that he has a target on g7, is that white has basically complete dominion over the whole board. And what do I mean by that? Well, basically, this bishop, white has a bind on the board, and he has a bind on the center. Notice that the queen, the pawn on f4, and the bishop on d4 are all binding the center square e5. And the reason why it's a bind is because obviously black can't play the freeing maneuver e5. The dynamic freeing maneuver g5 cannot be played on the king side because of the rook, the pawn, and the queen. And the dynamic freeing maneuver b6 or b5 can also not be played on the queen side because of the pawn on c5, the bishop, and the queen. So there's a complete bind in the position. So white has complete dominion over the board for the majority of the board. And in addition to that, he has a target on g7. But white cannot win instantly because there is no knockout. There is no rook takes g7 winning the queen, or rook takes g7 conclusively winning the game. How does white win? Well, white prevents black from developing counterplay, and he starts that off by playing h3. And these are moves that Karpov was basically known for in his day. An h3 move, he basically takes away all the oxygen from black's pieces, and then he slowly improves his position. And this strategy is very, very powerful and very effective, especially in tournament chess, because what happens is that your opponent either gets frustrated that he doesn't have many dynamic chances, and from all the possibilities that he has, he makes a mistake because he's trying to generate some sort of counterplay out of desperation, or just because he has limited possibilities. So these moves are typically good because they keep your advantage, and in addition to that, they don't compromise your position, and they're slowly improving it. So h3, brilliant move. Bishop to d7, a strong defensive move over protecting the pawn on e6. King to h2, once again following that plan of basically improving the position gently. Very sensitive move, protecting the rook on g3 and removing the king from any white square, keeping him safe on the new house that he built for himself with the pawn on h3. So bishop to e8, once again, it's just a waiting move and overprotecting. Queen to e2, and this is the winning plan. The idea is that now white is going to bring his queen into the attack, and this should help him create direct threats on the king side. So king g8, basically putting the king in a square where he's strongest, which are the light squares. Queen g4, queen d7, and now bishop to e5. This is like putting a cork on a bottle. He's not letting anything from the inside come out. There's no way that the pieces are going to come out. There's no allowing of counterplay. It's a great move. The threat is bishop to d6 at one point. So rook to e7, bishop f6, rook f7, queen g6. The queen has entered the game, and you could tell that there's serious threats on the board. King to f8 and bishop to e5. And the threat now is queen to h7, followed by bishop d6 check. So king g8 and queen takes pawn. And here we could safely assess the position as basically winning for white. Queen to e7, rook g4. The idea is to play rook to h4 at one moment. Bishop to b5, queen g6, bishop e8, and now rook g5. Idea, rook h5, queen h7, rook f4, queen g7, queen g7, rook g7, and after king f8, rook takes pawn, black resigned.